Hello! We are about to take a deep dive into the 1980s. In modern times, the 1980s are looked at nostalgically. People think of all the neon, the rise of food courts, awesome movies, and much, much more. However, there is more to the 80s than just neon. It was a time of change. Ronald Reagan is the most significant president of the decade after being elected in 1981 and serving until 1989. He lowered taxes and increased the nation's GDP by $2 million with his Reaganomic policies. There was an economic recession in the beginning of the 80s, but by the end, conditions began to improve. 13 million new jobs were created and the lowest inflation rate was reached across all decades. The Cold War was finally coming to a close in the late 80s, as peaceful revolutions were occurring in the Soviet areas of Eastern Europe. People were finally able to relax. Sandra Day O'Connor becomes the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court, and Sally Ride is the first female astronaut. New tech was also on the rise, with fax machines, cassette tapes, and the cellular telephone being developed. Pop superstars emerged, with performers like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, and many others. MTV debuted in 1981, and hip-hop was on the rise. New music, video, tech, job opportunities, and a great aesthetic can attribute to the 80s popularity today.
Hello! Let's give a warm welcome to O'Shea Jackson. Woo!
What's up, everybody? My name is O'Shea Jackson, but many of you know me as Ice Cube.
Thank you so much for being here, O'Shea. Can you give the audience a quick background about yourself?
Of course, I was born on June 15th, 1969. And fun fact about me, I brought back Chuck Taylors. Those are my favorite shoes.
Ooh, that's really interesting. Now, what did you think of the music in the 80s? You were pretty popular at the time, weren't you?
I consider the 80s one of the best decades of hip-hop, and there was a lot of new dance moves created during this time. Even though I can't dance, I saw a lot of people doing the Running Man, Roger Rabbit, and the Cabbage Patch to my flow. It was quite interesting, to say the least. Oh, let's not forget the mixtape and the Walkman. The Walkman. And now we can listen to music while walking. Without this, the evolution of phones and iTunes may not have existed. Not only that, but hip-hop artists like me started to develop their own sound.
No way! You made your own songs?
Yeah, living in the 80s was great. Yeah, I made a song called 80s Babies, and I mentioned that I like all types of women. No discrimination here.
Wow! Thank you, Ice Cube, for this interview. The 80s sound amazing.
Thank you.
Many of music's biggest icons, like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Whitney Houston, and Prince, came from the 80s. These artists left an indelible mark on the past and current music industry, with 80s music being considered some of the best music created in history. The creation of MTV allowed for a revolution in music and entertainment, music videos. The genres that emerged from this time, hip-hop and new wave, are considered classic music hallmarks. Hip-hop, once becoming mainstream, helped to introduce African American cultural rhythm and urban beats to a previously predominantly white mainstream. Although it was met with some resistance, with its nickname being the new rock and roll, it helped to reintroduce and mix races and cultures in a shared love for artists like Grandmaster Flash, Slick Rick, and Rakim and Eric B. Female hip-hop artists like Queen Latifah and Salt and Peppa defended femininity within a predominantly male-dominated music industry, emphasizing female sexuality and empowerment. Hip-hop artists introduced fashion trends that are still very popular today, such as denim clothing, gold chains, and sneaker culture. The rise of new wave music can also be seen in its emergence in teen culture, as reflected by its use of popular teen films like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, and The Breakfast Club. It influenced teen fashion and dance as well, introducing a wide variety of eccentric fashion that is still seen today. Mismatched colors, bright patterns, poofy hair, and makeup for both genders was common among new wave artists. New wave also introduced new forms of music production, with artists such as Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, Pet Shop Boys, and New Order utilizing new instruments such as the synths and revolutionizing guitar melodies and percussion sections. 80s music artists also helped to bring attention to androgynous fashion, questioning rigidity to male and female gender roles. Prince, Michael Jackson, Annie Lennox, and Boy George all challenged ideas of masculinity and femininity with clothing that reflected both genders. Finally, the 80s music scene produced lots of one-hit wonders, some of which are still popular today. These include Take On Me by a-ha, Come On Eileen by Dexys Midnight Runner, Soft Cell's Tainted Love, I Met With You by Modern English, and the infamous Never Gonna Give You Up by oh wait, apparently that's not a one-hit wonder. Whoops.
In the 80s, there was a crack epidemic which increased the numbers of users from 4.2 to 5.8 million, as stated in the store's history. Although it devastated communities, especially African Americans, this epidemic showed how detrimental drugs were, as President Ronald Reagan attempted to decrease the usage of drugs by declaring war on it. Not only that, but his wife, Nancy Reagan, had launched the Just Say No movement to combat the epidemic. This movement lasted more than a decade and helped increase attention on the dangers of drugs as awareness spiked from 2% to 64%. Moreover, the Iran-Contra affair was a scandal in which the Reagan administration made a deal to arm the Iranian government in return for the government's aid in the release of American hostages who were held by a terrorist group in Lebanon. This was controversial because Reagan had made a promise to the people to never negotiate with terrorists. Although controversial, Reagan was able to keep his legacy mostly intact, as other presidential scandals like Watergate made the Iran-Contra affair appear as a minuscule issue. Sadly, on January 28, 1986, a NASA space shuttle named the Challenger went up in flames after departing for only 73 seconds, killing 7 astronauts. Amongst these astronauts was a teacher named Krista McAuliffe, who was supposed to be the first American citizen to travel into space. After an investigation was made, they soon discovered that a malfunction occurred within the O-ring seal on the Challenger solid rocket booster, which occurred to the unexpected cold temperature. This caused flames to break out and damage the internal fuel tank, causing the spacecraft to explode and disintegrate. This could have been easily avoided if warnings were followed. Thus, this event gave a lesson for NASA to always follow procedure, and they also proceeded to redesign the shuttle features to accommodate it better for future explorations.